Hello, everyone. Welcome to StarSound Speaks. This is your host, Irlianna Samsara. It is February astrology time. For those of you who are new to the channel, I practice Hellenistic or traditional astrology blended with modern, and I use whole sign houses. We're going to talk about the astrology for February in this video. There's so much Aquarian energy this month. It's different. It can feel weird. My hair, I have alfalfa hair sticking up, a live coverage of the Aquarian season. So I'm going to talk about things in a different way. So instead of my typical news report of linear, I'm going non-linear in true Aquarian fashion, thinking and working outside the box. So bear with me. I don't know I do have notes, so it will hopefully make sense. We'll have fun at least. First of all, Uranus went direct a few days ago. So now all planets are direct. This is rare window. This is the time to move forward, get things done. We have so many planets that are about to move into Aquarius. So the sun's in Aquarius. We're going to have a stellium there. And there's a lot of energy, right, about the Aquarian archetype. So I'm going to take a moment and talk about what that Aquarian archetype is and why is it so vitally important right now. Well, for one thing, Pluto still at 0 degrees, right? He's a slow dude. He is bearing down on us to say, look and see the next 20 years, what this is going to look like, our new world. And in the air sign of Aquarius, it has to do with the mind, the intellect, right? It's not the capitalist, earthbound Capricorn expression. It's totally different. And it is at 0 degrees until February 21st, so most of the month. 0 degrees, as if you don't know, that is considered a critical degree. Any sign at 0 degrees is giving us this preview. So in case of Pluto, it's the next 20 years. We have not seen Pluto in Aquarius when it entered last year. No one on Earth has ever seen Pluto in Aquarius. We're all going through this together because it takes 248 years to move through a sign. So that's a big deal. And what's also interesting too is this month, as you can see here, here's February 1st. We've got this stellium over here in Capricorn. We have Mercury and Mars battling it out. and Venus is also in Capricorn. So this is stellium. The sun is already conjuncted Pluto. That already happened. These planets, all three of these are going to be moving in the month of February, as we can see here. First Mercury, and then Mars, finally Venus. And so by mid-month, it's going to be pretty spicy meatball. There's a lot of weirdness in the air, bigger than my hair, my alfalfa hair here. And it can be a little freaky scary. Why is that? Well, Aquarius is the sign of the visionary thinker, thinking outside the box, breaking with tradition, breaking with the past, going into unknown territory. And what I want to say about this with Pluto being there, as you see, 1, 2, 3, 4 planets and the sun, all those entities expressing the Aquarian archetype. That's a lot of Aquarius, right? By the time we get to middle of the month. When Pluto, when you think about Pluto, he's kind of like I think of him as like this toll gate. It's like all these planets have to pass Pluto as they're entering Aquarius. Pluto's standing there at the border, right? And he's like, okay, you got to remember, this is the first time we're meeting Mercury and Venus. Oh, these are the first planets that are saying hello to Pluto and Aquarius. This is the first time. It didn't happen last year at 0. When Mercury, Mars, and Venus, last time they met up with Pluto, he was still in Capricorn. So this is the first time he's in Aquarius. So this is like new ground. And so Venus and Mars, the gang is like, hi, Pluto. Oh, okay, you're like totally about a different focus now. We're now in this Aquarian energy. What's it going to take to be free? What kind of a society are we designing? Are we going to be enslaved by technology, or are we going to use it to free ourselves? Or are we going to even go beyond? Like, what is the real technology? What's inside of us is amazing technology. And Pluto's kind of scary, he's the lord of the underworld. It's natural to kind of feel this month like maybe some freakiness or weirdness or feeling estranged and uncomfortable because, look, let's face it, we see it all around us. AI, the way it's so quickly transforming and radically transforming our landscape. Just today, I found 2 more video editing software, for example. I'm like, oh my God, there's all these companies coming out. Well, we will edit this, we will do that, we will do your clips, we will, and I'm like, I feel overwhelmed. It's like I got to take a nap. I can't even take in this stuff. And if you feel that way, you're not alone. It can make you feel very isolated or overwhelmed, especially with Pluto, and each planet meeting up with Pluto, and he's kind of like the, let me initiate you in here. And are you afraid? I don't know. I mean, the first one to go through is Mercury. And so he's testing our mind. Okay, hello, Mercury, the mind. Are we oriented toward the future? Are we willing to set our minds and think in terms of the we, not the me? Can we not leave ourselves behind, but think of ourselves in the broader picture of what is benefiting humanity? And so each time these planets will pass through, Mercury and then Mars and then Venus, these questions are coming up. Mercury, how we think. Mars, how we act. What will it take to be brave and move forward in this rapidly changing world? Where's our courage? What kind of goals do we want to set for ourselves? Venus, when she enters, and that will be around mid-month, we have all of those planets, all 5 in the sign of Aquarius. Well, when Venus gets there, how to love, right? What's my concept of intimate relationships? Remember, Venus is the South Node ruler. It's very easy to fall back on the past. The South Node is typically, it relates, I like to think of the South Node as like the things that you find yourself doing. Yes, you've achieved greatness in past lives and accumulated a lot of wisdom in this area. But if you continue to lean on that, it's like the easy crutch that you go back to, old patterns. And if you rely on that, then you're not going to evolve. So Venus being the South Node ruler, do you want to stay comfortable and accommodating everybody? Or are you willing to be brave and step out and speak your truth to have equality? It's going to take coming from that direction rather than peace at all costs. That's where we go south. But we don't evolve when we cling to those kinds of relationships of peace at all costs. So Venus and Aquarius, with that conjunction of Pluto, boy, he's going to rinse that right, he's going to wash that thing right out of her hair, and that's good. That's a good thing. It's really asking us, what is it going to take to be free? Well, with Pluto in the mix so strongly this month with that signature, what's it going to take is really looking honestly at our shadow. Pluto is going to show us the things where we have unconscious patterns about, say, Aquarian things, trauma, isolation, abandonment. So when we face these things and deal with them openly and honestly, we can have those treasures, right? Pluto is the wealth of the earth, and you think about reaching in the Aquarian mind. When we open and align ourselves and greet our shadow and not be afraid of it, move past that Pluto fear, could be like this little initiation, how are you afraid? It's okay to be afraid, but this is a time when we can reprogram ourselves, and we have to. I mean, my goodness, the world is changing so fast. I thought it was interesting that when the Academy Awards were announced, Emma Stone got an Oscar nomination, Best Actress, for a movie called Poor Things. I haven't seen it yet, but I read the synopsis, and it's so Aquarian, especially Pluto in Aquarius. The nominations were announced when Pluto was back at 0 degrees. And remember, I said, watch what happens between January 21st and February 21st when Pluto, just for your time zone, when Pluto is in 0 Aquarius. Well, here's this woman who gets nominated, and it's this kind of feminist Frankenstein type story. She plays this woman who has a new brain. It's like this Dr. Frankenstein type figure, Dr. Godwin. They call him God, I think, for short. But anyway, very interesting, right? So there's the Frankenstein archetype, which, of course, when Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, she was born when Pluto was last in Aquarius, 29 degrees of Aquarius. So it was very telling, which is another critical degree, right? So here we are back in Pluto and Aquarius, and we've got Emma Stone playing this figure of this person who comes back to life. He puts a new brain in this woman. It's a little baby, a newborn baby, the brain that he puts into her body. She commits suicide, not giving anything away, but she commits suicide, and he brings her back to life with this new brain, and then everything that happens that unfolds. But it's a huge movie about feminine empowerment, but it's also this whole idea of this resurrection, this Pluto and Aquarius resurrection, being this new life that comes to life that's artificial, like, right? You take somebody's brain and you're modifying someone. Speaking of brains, Elon Musk announced that the first human has been implanted with a chip in their brain. Not the chip from like 20 years ago, where it was like a little RFID chip that was kind of like a little grain of rice that there were some experiments of putting it in like people's hands. This is in somebody's brain. And the chip is huge. It's like the size of a quarter, big clunky thing. And of course, it's always for the betterment, Aquarian energy, right? We want to better humanity. So they're experimenting with people putting this chip in, having surgery, brain surgery to have this in, but they're quadriplegics. So they're testing and experimenting with how this could help them, where they would think and their thoughts about, like, say, picking up the phone or making a call are transmitted into actions. And he calls it telepathy. This is Elon Musk calling this new chip and program telepathy. So, wow, right? Yeah, kind of scary, using Aquarian energy for telepathy. Wait till May 25th when Jupiter enters the mind sign, Gemini, Jupiter in Gemini, making an exact trine with Pluto. So I think more is going to follow. And that's one of the big days. And I haven't gotten into it yet, but I'm going to be talking about big, important dates to watch out for the rest of the year. Certainly when Pluto went into zero Aquarius last week was one of them. And then we're going to see this repeated again in the end of May when Jupiter is at that 0 degree of Gemini. A lot, right? It's like, okay, let's all take a moment and breathe. I'm trying to do things differently. So, not like, okay, Elon Musk, Emma Stone, 0. We're seeing it around us. Keep looking, folks. Keep looking. It's everywhere. But this brave new world, to quote Aldous Huxley, Pluto, that toll gate, each of these planets passing through. And we have to ask ourselves, are we free? Are we really free? Do these things give us freedom? February 5th, Mercury is going to meet up, right? That could also give like sudden flashes of insight, really profoundly transformative, maybe a cathartic emotional experience regarding the mind, sudden flashes of insights, thinking outside the box, coming from our future selves could be another area. The 6th, we have Venus as the South Node ruler in a trine with Uranus. So that Venus is still in Capricorn at that point. And there's like this serious commitment. Venus in the Sun Capricorn is very serious about who she loves and who she hooks up with. Disciplined, mature, long-term relationships are really highlighted when Venus is in Capricorn. Making that trine with Uranus, it's like saying, okay, we can look to the past, take the best from the past, but don't be mired in past conditioning. The trine with Uranus is like, hey, innovate, connect with people in new and different ways, certainly involving the earth, right? Uranus and Taurus, being grounded and resilient and practical, and infusing those qualities into the commitments that we make. Okay, then we've got the Sun squares Uranus, February 8th. Again, more very Uranian. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. Saturn is the traditional ruler. We look at both of those. So there's a lot that's speaking about shaking us up out of our comfort zones, breaking with the past, how we've done things. This is going to be reflected on February 9th when we've got our new moon in a late degree, 20 degrees of Aquarius. Around the middle of the month, that's when things get pretty spicy, because Mars, the warrior Mars, is going to be in the sign of Aquarius. He meets up with Pluto. And so that's like, you could think of that as, wow, let's go do something. Let's build a new society. Let's build a conscious community. But we, with Pluto there, we can get a little out of hand. It could get obsessive compulsive. It might be with Mars is impulsiveness and rash, erratic behavior with Aquarian energy. So we have to, be aware that that may come up. February 17th, Venus enters. And here is where we enter into Venus, the goddess of love and desire, in the sign of Aquarius. Two books I wanted to quote from. One of them is from Osho, named as one of the greatest, I think it was Time magazine, like the 100 greatest figures of the 20th century. And he wrote this book called Love, Freedom, Aloneness, the Koan of Relationships. Such an Aquarian topic, right? The energy that we're being asked to engage with this month. I say to you, you are absolutely free, unconditionally free. Don't avoid the responsibility, right? Aquarius ruled by Saturn. Don't avoid the responsibility. Avoiding is not going to help. The sooner you accept it, the better. Because immediately you can start creating yourself, right? The polarity of Aquarius is Leo. So Leo ruling creativity and the self, right? So we're always looking at the polarity between the two signs. And the moment you create yourself, great joy arises. And when you have completed yourself the way you wanted to, there is immense contentment, just as when a painter finishes his painting. The last touch, and a great contentment arises in his heart. A job well done brings great peace. I love that. I'm going to say it again. A job well done brings great peace. One feels that one has participated with the whole. The Aquarian energy is always about participate with the whole. What is best for everyone? What benefits you is going to benefit everyone. The only prayer is to be creative, because it is only through creativity that you participate in the whole, where there is no other way to participate. God has not to be thought about. You have to participate in some way. So the thought, the idea of Aquarian energy is mental, right? Air and intellect. So we can't get stuck in our heads. We have to go out there and make something happen. This is what I love. You cannot be an observer. You can only be a participant. So you can't be observing on the sidelines, isolated off to the side. That's not going to work. Only then will you taste the mystery of it. Creating a painting is nothing. Creating a poem is nothing. Creating music is nothing compared to creating yourself, creating your consciousness, creating your very being. And here's where Pluto comes in. But people have been afraid, and there are reasons to be afraid. The first is that it is risky, because only you are responsible. Secondly, the freedom can be misused, because you can choose the wrong thing to be. Freedom means you can choose the right or the wrong. If you are only free to choose the right, it is not freedom. Then it will be like when Ford made his first cars. They were all black. And he would take his customers into the showroom and tell them, you can choose any color provided it is black. But what kind of freedom is this? Provided it is right. Provided it follows the 10 commandments. As long as you, go to the Koran, as long as it's in the Bible, as long as it's in the Koran, as long as it's the 10 commandments, etc., Buddha, whatever, that's not freedom. Freedom basically intrinsically means that you are capable of both, either choosing the right or the wrong. That is true freedom. So lots of great stuff here. I highly recommend this book. The other thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up is the archetype of Aquarian energy. So take this with you as we go through the month. And for that, I turned to this wonderful book, one of my first books. It was my dear star sister gave me, Praji, and it's called Mythic Astrology, Internalizing the Planetary Powers, and it's Ariel Guttman. She is she's a living legend. She's a Jungian astrologer, psychotherapist. Ariel Guttman and Kenneth Johnson. It's an incredible reference book. Anyway, what does she have to say? This is the myths, right? The myths and the archetypes that are the underpinnings of each of these signs' energies. So she talks about the Epic of Gilgamesh. So we go back to the times of Babylon and ancient Babylon, and the Aquarian, and she's talking about Aquarian energy here. You know, there's a particular distinction because Aquarius is a human being. It's the water pourer. So it's a human being, not an animal or a scale like Libra, right? It's an actual person. And in the she speaks about the Epic of Gilgamesh. And in this epic, this human being has a name and a story. So basically, what it speaks to is Gilgamesh had lost his closest friend, Enkidu, his companion in arms. He wanted to restore him to life. So Gilgamesh goes to seek the herb of immortality. And the goddess had sent a bull against him. Well, think of the other fixed signs, Taurus, the bull. And during his quest, he conquered a pride of lions, Leo, and passed the gateway where scorpion men stood guard, Scorpio, right? So there's all three of those fixed signs. He had to master all those things before he could cross the threshold and reach the other world, where dwelt the immortal Utnapishtim, whom we may recognize as Aquarius. Utnapishtim had once been mortal like everyone else, but he alone had listened to the divine voices warning of world destruction. Utnapishtim built a boat and thus saved himself from the massive flood which came to inundate the world. Utnapishtim, of course, is the Sumerian or Babylonian form of Noah. And the flood story in which he plays such a key role is the prototype of the flood story in Genesis. Obviously, it's a familiar archetype. Because of his obedience to the divine will, Utnapishtim had been granted eternal life because he obeyed his divine will, or you could say your higher self, right? Making that sacrifice of the lower egoic-driven Leo, right? Transcending that and calling forth that higher aspect, and was given keeping over the herb of immortality. This is a mythic figure, is associated with the flood and with renewal or immortality. So the archetype of Osiris, Hapi, and Utnapishtim, it's all the same archetype, whichever tradition you jive with. But this whole thing with the flood, you don't necessarily have to take that literally. It can also be, when I think about it, it's the flood of information, Aquarian energy. We are flooded with, God, it just seems like, I wonder if I wrote down every minute I was scrolling just my inbox, of how many emails every day to get through. It's just overwhelming, and of course, to say nothing of social media. So that overwhelm, right? That's a flood, the flood of information. And who are we going to be? How do we navigate that? Well, building a boat to me would be kind of like the Matsya Vishnu story when I talked to S.J. Anderson last month. Matsya Vishnu, it's this, you build a boat, you build up practices that are devotions that build your strength and your presence and your calmness, so that when the rough seas happen, you are centered and you don't die, right? You move through the turbulence and to move to the other side, to a higher evolution. The other thing I want to say about her books, in the Greek tradition, there was a different story about Aquarius. Aquarius was Ganymede. He was a beautiful Trojan boy, and Zeus carried him off to Mount Olympus, and he was the cupbearer. So there's the pouring out. The gods subsisted on nectar and ambrosia, and presumably it was ambrosia which Ganymede poured from his cup. Ambrosia is the same word as the Sanskrit amrita, which means the drink of immortality. So Amrit or Amrita. I also think of Aquarian energy as it's the nervous system and the breath. So from the time from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., in the yogic tradition, it's called Amrit Vela, the nectar of bliss, the nectar of time. That time of the day is when the yogis do their pranayama. The concept of the breath being this, like we think about breatharians, that's really Aquarian, right? Being fed on prana, on Amrit. And not to get into this detail, but it has to do with in the pituitary and these advanced yogis that are breatharian, and they reach in Kachari Mudra is one very, very, very advanced yogic posture where you are a mudra with the tongue, and you actually can contact and make this incredibly, beyond the beyond connection with the divine Amrit that drip, and when you make that connection, you can, these yogis, they move beyond food, right? They're fed from this higher place. They're fed from divine light, the divine will, the willpower it takes to do these things, right? This is a very ascetic practice. But this is my point being that the Aquarian season that we are in, with all these planets speaking to this place of letting go of the past and embracing and thinking outside the box, we could say rewiring our nervous system into this new frequency. Mercury's going to be there. Mars is going to Mercury's like, let's rewire that brain. Mars is like, yeah, let's get it done. Venus is like, yeah, let's connect with others who are all, also considered maybe weirdos for thinking this way, but we're going to create this new, we're going to relate to each other on this new frequency. So the Aquarian meaning is always intertwined with this concept of a divine substance which nourishes all life. This substance is variously described as the waters of life, a life-giving herb, or a life-giving drink. Life-giving, yes. What's going to give us freedom? What's going to give us life? We have this enormous chance this month to really explore these topics. I would say when Mars conjoins with Pluto, that's intense. Just a warning here, and that's going to perfect by the middle of the month. Happy Valentine's Day. It'll happen around February 13th, 14th, depending on your time zone. So we have to watch our obsessions, keep our obsessions in check. Of course, Venus gets into play. The last thing I want to say before I wrap it up is we've got this, of course, we've got our new moon, as I said, at 20 Aquarius, February 9th, February 24th, the full moon in Virgo. But what's cool, at the end of the month, we're going to have Mercury will go into the sign of Pisces. After he finishes this whole dance, he's going to be in exile. That's not an easy place for Mercury. He'll want to dream, and he won't care about facts and details. And it's kind of like, whoo, Mercury, smoke that big spliff. That would be a great time for writing, certainly poetry and inspiration, inspired writing. Very, very powerful. What's really cool is that we're going to have a triple cazimi at the end of the month, February 28th. We're going to have the Sun and Saturn and Mercury. Mercury and Saturn are both going to be at the same time in that throne room, getting reprogrammed with the Sun. And the Sun in Pisces, if we think that we've lost hope, that we're despondent, we're depressed, and we feel there's no hope left, our minds are just dejected or rejected, maybe we feel like we've been duped, we've kidded ourselves, or others have taken advantage of us, Pisces, right? Delusion, fantasy. And sometimes it's like, oh, the thing I really believed in was just a fantasy, and that we could feel really dejected. When it comes into that cazimi, there's this reprogramming. This is like the light of the divine is saying, no, have hope, forgive yourself, have compassion for yourself. Your mind is a good mind. You are a great writer. Don't believe all the programming that has you believe otherwise, that has you feel lesser than, for example. With Saturn there, it's like, yes, it's time to take those beautiful, amazing dreams and visions that you have, or your writing skills, and let's formulate a plan, Saturn, right? Let's formulate some kind of, let's bring this into fruition. Let's apply ourselves and use our discipline and focus and time management to advance and do whatever sacrifice we have to do to create this great art. Now, take good care of yourself. Don't burn out. But the sun standing in the rays of that cazimi, here's when we get reprogrammed and cleansed and purified so that we get that jolt. And then we can go back out in the world and we're renewed. We're like a new person. So yeah, something to look forward to at the end of the month. And I would highly recommend that if you feel you are creative or didn't believe in yourself, if you didn't believe in your creative skills, writing, communicating, teaching, any kind of sharing information, this is a great reprogramming moment with Saturn there. It's pretty epic. So yeah, we end the month on that beautiful triple cazimi. So it's that Aquarian journey and then into this transcendental other world with the Mercury Saturn cazimi. Hope that this information has been of use to you. So let me know. I'd love to hear what your plans are or how you feel about this month coming up. Leave your comments below. We love hearing from you. I hope you have a fantastic February. Much love to you all. Yay. And remember, be weird. All right, my hair kind of calmed down there, but it was like, like if you have an alfalfa hair, sticking up, it's okay. This is the month to let it rip. Put on your freak flag and let that fly. Have a great one, and we'll talk soon. This is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, starsoundastrology.com. Thank you all for listening. Namaste.